We are starting chapter 41, which is very exciting. It's a new unit in Tanya, chapter 41. And we're really bringing home the emotion part of things. So, to give us a little bit of perspective, the Tanya is a how-to book, how to serve God, how to be a Bainani, how to do, what's to reach your expectations, to reach your purpose. So to be a Bainani, the Alter Rebbe explains in all the chapters leading up to now, is really action oriented, and it's really all about the action. And the Bainani isn't really expected to feel or have this ecstasy that a tzaddik is expected to feel, because we have the conflict, that an active conflict inside of us. We are expected to have this constant impulse control, this constant ability to master our behavior, which is hard enough. Yet, the beauty of the service of God is that there's no glass ceiling. Even though we're striving to be a Bainani, and the Bainani's fulfillment is at perfect behavior, yet we can go past that. We can actually access emotion. And the emotion, on the chapters right leading up to this one, we were explaining that they were wings of angels, and they're going to take our actions and fly them upward and really make them land. But so the emotion, the more the better. So what are these core emotions? Well, actually, let me get back to that in a minute. So it's kind of like, when I learned how to drive, I think I've used this example before, like I remember my mom told me this. She's like, just look ahead. If you're focusing on the dotted lines right in front of you, you're going to start weaving. If you look in the horizon, then you will naturally align yourself in the road. So it's like, maybe we will not actually get to the tzaddik's level of ecstasy and emotion, yet if we actually allow ourselves to look to that direction, and not just ignore and be like, oh, that's not for me, but to actually really try, then we will be on the path. We'll be, on the road, on that same spectrum. So even though I shut off the fan, I still won't see. So, now, what are these two basic emotions? Right? There's the right-sided emotion and the left-sided emotion. So it's love and fear. And they correspond to the way that our emotional genetic makeup, spiritual makeup, with the 10 sephirot. We've got the right-sided ones and the left-sided ones, and they correspond. But and the right wing, the love, is a motivator for action. The do mitzvot come from that. And the left-sided ones, fear, motivate the do not actions, the things that we do not do, the mitzvot that tell us what we shouldn't be doing. So fear, we're going to do, but before we get into the words of the Tanya, let's analyze this love and this fear thing, okay? These two parent emotions, because of course there's nuance in emotion, right? There's offshoots of each one, and but like the general, this side or that side. So fear gets a bad rap. And I'd like to take a moment and analyze what are love and fear, and why is that? And maybe let's question that. So what kind of, when you think of love, the feelings that the somatic experience in the body is that swelling heart, right? That expansiveness, maybe warmth. And I would love to hear from you. Like maybe there's, you can add to this conversation. It's interesting because in the word, a synonym that is used to describe love is gadlut, gadol, big, because you're expanding toward. And fear, on the contrast, is contraction. You're moving away from something. When you're afraid of something, you're jumping backward. You're minimizing yourself. If you're afraid, you're going to be, and the word is gevura, strength, because you're going to be limiting. You're going to be constricting. Strength, yes. The gevura. The gevura is like, remember I was saying that it corresponds to their spiritual, emotional makeup, which is the chesed and the gevura, right? The chesed is the giving, the gevura is the contracting. So it follows this same line. So I just want to see if there's any other synonyms that I could use to explain, and let's contrast these experiences. So when you are feeling love, you're being motivated to do something, right? You want to give. When you're feeling fear, you're being compelled to hold back. Love, like which one is more fun? Love or fear, right? Love, right? Love is the thing that motivates us to give a gift. Love is the thing, like, let's think about a relationship. Love is like what makes us want to do a favor. It makes us remember how somebody takes their coffee, right? It's like those extra things that are fun. They spice up a relationship. They move toward. They bring us together.
It feels nice.
It feels nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's why fear gets a bad rap. Because it doesn't have that same feel-good, positive, toward experience. Yet, imagine love without fear. How is that experience in a relationship, for example? Like, I'm sure we've all experienced that when somebody we care about, who we would like to care about us, we're in a relationship, and they do us a really nice gesture. Maybe they come home with, like flowers or coffee, just the way I like it, or whatever. Yet, I had asked, let's say you asked them to come by a certain time or whatever, and they just completely disregarded that. So like, what I'm trying to say is that if there's a lack of the fear, and I'm going to use a different word in a minute and it'll bring it home, then the love has a hard time being appreciated. What is another word for fear? What comes in respect? Once we use the word respect, I think it all clicks into place. What is respect?
Valuing others' needs.
Right, or boundaries even,
yes.
Right? Respect is limiting myself, holding space for somebody else, making space. So respect, when we're respecting, we're actually holding ourselves back. It's a form of that, it's part of that line of fear. So when we use the word fear, we're like, oh no, fear is negative. But actually, it's the wording that we're using that I think gives it a bad rap. We do value respect. Respect may not be as fun as love, but it is, and the Tanya is about to say this, a prerequisite. Because if we're going to have love without respect, we almost can't even appreciate the love. The respect creates the safety. It's the first step. The respect is when we hold ourselves back, we contract ourselves, and consider and value the other person's needs, or the other person's space that they need to take up, or the other person's boundaries and requests and preferences and whatever it is that they would rather. And the things that we hold ourselves back from doing are powerful manifestations of respect. The things that we hold ourselves back from doing for the sake of respecting the other. They may not be as fun. They may not show up in the, they're not as romantic, yet they're our foundation. And many times in a building, the foundation is the invisible part. It's not the fun part. It's not the beautiful part, but it's the essential part, and it comes first. And we have that in parenting too. Developmentally, what a child needs first is boundaries, respect, rules. If we were to make rule following contingent on a 2-year-old understanding why, it would be dangerous for them, right? At that age, they first need to, 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old, they first need to accept a boundary, a safety rule, right? First things first, don't walk into the street. Later we can have a conversation about it, right? So that those when we parent a child, and this is the specifically the Jewish tradition, which aligns nicely, is the first things first. We have rules, we have expectations, we have boundaries. Later on, once that is established as a foundation, then we have a three-year-old that starts, and that's why it's so challenging. We have conversations, we have negotiations, and we have explanations, and we have all that comes only healthy afterward. Hello, this is in our tradition. This is called Kabbalas or Kabbalat Ol, accepting the yoke. Kabbalat Ol is this is that acceptance of, and we're about to get into it, but that's the first step. It's foundational, and this is like an attitude. It's not like it's a pervasive attitude of acceptance of our role and place in the world. And it's like it comes up in a big way in parenting, and also in elementary schools, even high schools. It can be used toxically too, but let's leave that aside. It's any time where we're trying to cultivate an attitude of respect and acceptance that is not contingent on understanding or enjoyment or appreciation.
Is it mostly related to raising children, or can it be as an adult in a large organization as well?
That's a great question. Absolutely, for all ages. The reason why I brought it up in children is because it's foundational. Mm-hmm. Because it's a foundation, developmentally it also shows up in a larger ratio. Like the ratio of the amount of rule following will be larger in young children than it is with adults. But if it's properly established at a young age, it serves that individual throughout their lifetime, because it becomes less of a conflict actually later in life when you are understanding. That understanding, if it comes as building a building from a foundation of acceptance, it feels safer. It feels more solid. But yet, that same Kabbalat Ol is the foundation for the entire life, for our entire life. It's the whole house that's being built on this foundation. So if one has learned it from a young age, it's easier. It doesn't create as much conflict in their life. But if it hasn't been learned, then it can create conflict in teens, especially in teens, or even just a whole life, right? If there hasn't ever been an acceptance of a premise, then everything will always be questioned. So where the words are going to take us through this idea of this fear. Now, when we use that word fear, there are multiple levels that the chapter is going to tell us about fear. And actually, I wanted to say that the chapter, we're going to start with like half of the chapter, and then we'll see how much we get to after that. Because basically the first part is like the foundational part, and then it starts to get into higher levels of fear. So the first level of fear is that Kabbalat Ol.
How do you spell that? O-L?
Yeah, O-L. In Hebrew, it's Ayin Vav Lamed, and it means yoke, like accepting responsibility. Basically, accountability in a way, but not exactly. Well, let's get into it and we'll figure out what it means. So the first level is respect. Recognize, accepting this Ol. And then you get to levels of awe. All part of the same category, left-sided wing of fear. Now, of course, you don't want to have a lopsided angel either. You want to have the love. But the point that Tanya is making here is fear comes first. That is the healthy order. Just like a relationship, reviewing, just like a relationship where if love comes before or instead of the respect, it feels unsafe and it almost feels like you can't even receive the love. If there's that respect foundation, then you have that safety and you're able to receive the gestures that come from love. Does
So
that make sense?
Fear is being equated not to, oh my God, somebody's going to hit me or stab me. It's fear as in contraction.
Yes, fear as in respect. I would say that if we were to use one word as the foundational aspect of fear, it would be respect. And I don't know, in a relationship, I don't know if you follow what I'm describing, but like, so maybe I'll use another example, but like if you have a boundary and somebody's crossing that boundary, it doesn't matter how sweet they are, it doesn't matter how many chocolates or bracelets or whatever they're going to give you, they're crossing your boundaries of things that really mean something to you. Let's say they're speaking to you disrespectfully. Let's say they're belittling you, right? They're doing these disrespectful things they're crossing your boundaries of respect. It doesn't matter how many gifts they give you. It doesn't matter how many compliments even they give you, because they're also not respecting who you are or your space or your needs. But when you do have that sense of respect as a foundation, then you're open for love. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to me in the context of us humans, yes, and our limitations, basically, that we can believe we're loving or acting out of love, but not actually being in that true essence of love, and then we would have to have this balance of fear-driven, respect-driven anchor. But if we could attain a true essence of love, then that would already encompass it, right? Because you can't, it's not love. Like, we can describe it as love, everything that you said, but it's not love in its essence, right?
And you're right in that there's levels of love as well as fear. We talked about, like, there's levels, so love as well. There's this level of love called ahava rabbah that is encompasses the fear as well.
Like,
if we got to that,
go to the,
yes.
Yeah, you know, like many, because we experience both fear, both love in so many different ways.
Yes.
But if we would go through all those stages, and eventually, I'm sure we would just come to one.
That level is absolutely true, and that's the Tanya's going to get at that. That's the end of the line. When we talk about the tzaddik, keeping our eyes on that goal, that's the furthest goal there is. Ahava Rabbah is the highest level. Ahava Rabbah is when there is, like, the love is so selfless that it includes the fear, includes the respect.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But
this is basic, like,
on a basic level,
down to our capacity.
Well, and God created us as
Yes,
limited
yes.
individuals, and He created us with the ability to have relationships and everything that reflect the ultimate relationship between us and the divine. So they do have parallel.
But if we would want, as an intention, as unattainable, perhaps in a lifetime, maybe once in our lives we will achieve it, I don't know, will I achieve it, but as an intention to truly both experience and act in that state of love.
That definitely
that ultimate state of
exists.
love, then,
As
I
a
can hold on to
very
that,
ideal,
I can
yes.
hold on to that, like,
Have that in our consciousness
Yes.
as an ideal.
yes.
And work towards that ideal. Yet, if we don't recognize our natures, then we will, we may get really lost. It's like, and when we don't realize that we are human beings and we do have ego, we do have, right, our separate feelings, which is ego, then the ideal, it remains an ideal, and it becomes almost like we're not actually in touch with reality. So we have our human tendencies, and our human tendencies, the way God created us, is to feel ourselves, and in that experience, human experience, love includes more self than fear does. Love is about how I experience. I want to give to you. I'm expanding. Their sense of self is expanding towards another person in a beautiful way. But on a very base level, like, not in a beautiful way. When you say, I love Italian food, I mean, it's really about you. And there are relationships that are
Even
that
more so-
way.
Even more so when you say, I love fish. Or I
Yeah,
love
yeah, and then you
chicken."
kill the fish. Exactly. I love fish. You don't really love the fish. You enjoy the fish. It's about you. If you loved the fish, you would
Probably not eat it.
and you wouldn't eat it, and you would be like, campaigning for, reducing plastics and taking care of the fish. And that is exactly, illustrates the idea of love being, it's a spectrum. On the most ideal level, it's a selfless, includes respect, but we have to remember that on the same spectrum exists I love fish. And that's about me and what I enjoy. And as I was saying before, relationships can be the same way, unfortunately, right? There's all types of, you say the word relationship, it can mean this and it can mean that, right? There can be relationships that aren't healthy, that there's, that it's really, and even healthy relationships, there exists nuance and times and, aspects, and there's an aspect of relationships that we are feeling pleasure in what I get out of this relationship, and what do I enjoy, and even spending time together could be, you're feeling yourself enjoy that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's part of the experience. Whereas what really reflects the selfless aspect more so is the respect part, where it's not about what I'm enjoying out of the relationship, it's not what is fun and what is pleasurable, it's also what I respect, where I contract myself because you are important.
It's in line also with the Buddhistic view. To truly love the flower is simply witness the flower. But
See
you're not
it,
ripping
give
the
it
flower.
space. Yes, yes.
You're not ripping it. So you are holding yourself back. You're not taking it to your home. You're not, you're just there admiring it.
100%. Yes, that's precisely what we're talking about. So let's read the Tanya, and let's see how this is reflected in our relationship with God, the divine.
And where are we?
So we're at the top of the page. This is the beginning of the chapter. One must, however, constantly bear in mind what is the beginning of divine service, as well as its core and root. So there's 3 adjectives used to describe how essential it is to begin with this aspect. Beginning, core, and root. This means, although fear is the root of turn away from evil and love is the root of do good. In other words, as I was saying in our introduction, we need both, and we, in an equal way, we have 2 equal wings, and the right side, the love, is going to motivate us to do the mitzvot that are active, like put up a mezuzah, eat in the sukkah, eat the matzah, and the fear is going to motivate us not to kill and not to steal and to do all the do nots, right? To observe. Yet, nevertheless, I'm at that line. It is not sufficient to awaken the love alone to do good. Skipping to after the graphic, but at the very least, before performing the positive commandment, one must first arouse the innate fear, as in respect, which lies hidden in the heart of every Jew, not to rebel against the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, as has been stated above. So that this fear/respect should manifest itself in his heart, or at least in his mind. So I'm going to stop here for a minute. This is not the Alter Rebbe just touched on a concept that isn't new for us. When we talked about it more in relation to love, how as a Beinoni, we can do behavior, we can do action, but the feelings we may not have access to. Just may not be in our natural makeup to have ecstasy or to feel that degree of feelings towards God, and that's okay. We can also have a mental appreciation that is born out of meditation, and that's enough. So this is our introduction, because the Alter Rebbe is about to give us a mini meditation, a fear meditation, a respect meditation, a meditation that will lead us to respect, a meditation that's going to lead us to this Kabbalat Ol, this accepting of the yoke. And that meditation can be taken and meditated on and expanded on to this very palpable awe and respect that is felt in the heart, or it can be an appreciation in the mind. And later in the chapter, the Alter Rebbe will say that even if you can't even get to an appreciation, but you have an intention, that's even enough. Even to have this meditation as your intention, that's already enough. But of course, the more the better. The more feeling, the more passion, the better. So, we're at the second page. This is our meditation. This means that in order to arouse within himself the latter category of fear, he should at least contemplate in his mind the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof and his kingship. Okay, so the first step is God is great. And how is he great? The next paragraph says in two contradicting ways. He's memale kol almin, he fills all the worlds, and encompasses all the worlds at the same time. So what we're doing with this idea is we're meditating on the impossibleness of this infinity of God. And that's what he is. He is what we cannot comprehend. And we can go on and on and on and on about that. That's step number one. God is awesome. God is amazing. God is infinite. God doesn't end yet. Despite the fact that he doesn't end and doesn't end and doesn't end, and then if you imagine the end of the universe goes past that, for all time and for all eternity, and just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, yet he's within our world. And he's contracted, he's here, he's there, he's right here. But he's also there. Like, it can boggle the mind. It's supposed to. So that's step number one, that whole concept. That is, yeah.
How God can be everything and everywhere and all at once, and then at the same time be absent, in his will, her will, its will, within certain actions, within.
Because he contracts yes. Like, that is part of the greatness of God. Exactly that. That God is everywhere, yet he can choose to be hidden. Yeah. The ability to hide oneself is magical. Right? I mean, like, I can't make myself invisible right now. I can't take my energy out of the room. I am here. Right? God can. God can be so everywhere, yet make himself so invisible that we can't sense his energy unless we really work hard at it. That's the whole what's the word? Contradiction, in other words, of God. So, okay, that was step one. All that was step one.
But that's not God, that's human.
Not only, God actually creates that ability for humans to do that. So that's God. God creating that ability is God. Yeah. Yet. Okay, and that's the word actually that we're up to, yet.
Yet?
You see, it's like
quite far down.
Yes, third of the way from the bottom.
Is this number 2?
Yes, this is the second part of our meditation. Yet he leaves aside the creatures of the higher worlds and the creatures of the lower worlds. Remember, there are 4 spiritual worlds, and we're in the 4th one. All of those angels and all of those celestial beings and all of that layers of energy. And all of the physical world, all of the nature. I mean, I went to national parks. It's mind-boggling, the systems and the ecology and the ecosystems and the way God layers them and puts them in order, and everything is, nature works all by itself. It doesn't need our help, right? That's God creating all of those natural systems. All of that was for us. He uniquely bestows his kingship upon his people Israel, and in general, for God is known as King of Israel, and upon him in particular. So for humans, and then even more specifically for the Jewish people to do the Torah, and even more specifically for me. And that's where we get to this famous, that I have highlighted, and two people have highlighted. I think you do. Bishvili nivra ha'olam. Have you ever heard of the statement, for me the world was created? Bishvili nivra ha'olam. It comes from the Talmud. And means for my sake the world was created. All of this was for me. But what kind of for me? For me to take? For me to, pillage and use and poach? Not so. That's not the intention of for me. The next page continues. Actually, not quite the next page yet. Yeah. And he, for his part, accepts his kingship upon himself, that he be king over him. Where am I? To serve him and to do his will in all kinds of servile work. This accepts the yoke of divine service and is acquired of all Jews. So the word in Hebrew is avodat eved, like avadim hayinu. Like eved is a slave, or not a slave, no, that's in Egypt, but a servant. It's both, means both things. So a servant. So why all of this? So God is infinite, created this finite world with amazing systems, spiritual and physical, all for humans, Jewish people, and me, specifically me, my individual person. Why? So that I can be a servant to God. What emotions come up from this meditation? Complex. So
I'm thinking about people who take it really far.
But let's take it as far as we take it right now in this room. What it is not, as I mentioned before with this Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam, it's for me the world was created. If we're really understanding this meditation to the end, we're not going to be feeling a feeling of entitlement, right? That's not what comes up. You might think, oh, the world was created for me, entitled. No, it's not entitlement. It's not selfishness. At the same time, being a servant without this context can feel oppressive. I hope it's not that, because it's not oppressiveness as the extreme of servant. It's not entitlement to the extreme of everything's for me. What I hope that this meditation, amazement, for me, empowerment, right? All of this was created for me because my service is important.
As in purpose.
As in purpose. Correct. And all of that was for me in my little world to do that little mitzvah as a servant to the cosmos that come before me and click all of that into place. Empowerment. And all that empowerment is fear. So fear in this context is essential and positive. It's that respect. It's the respect of my place on this earth. That's Kabbalat O. That's what it means. Accepting the yoke is what this is talking about. Accepting that my place in creation, all of this was created for me to accept my role as a servant that is able and asked to do action and to refrain from action. All the things that are asked of me in the Torah is my role. And this meditation can be the meditation that fuels higher levels of fear, which is the fear, the awe, right? The awesomeness and the very, very extreme experience of awe, which then lends itself actually to the ahava, the love that comes offshoots of that fear. So it's actually a progression. But even if it's an appreciation of this idea, that's already enough. And even if it's an intention, even if this meditation simply fuels an intention, I know I would like my actions to reflect this. So I'm not able to feel it. I'm not able to even appreciate it right now because I'm not plugged in or clicked in mentally or emotionally. but I have the intention to manifest this in my life, and I have the intention for my actions to reflect this, that's enough. That intention, it's specific to each mitzvah, and it's also a general intention. And when we say somebody, and this is like a terminology all throughout history of Jewish history, have you ever heard of the term God-fearing Jew?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? That's what this means. A God-fearing Jew means somebody who has accepted this intention in their life.
Intention to serve
Intention.
with all that's been given to us to take the action.
Exactly. And accepting their role and their space in the universe as a servant. That's a God-fearing Jew. Whether the God-fearing Jew is perfect in the specifics, everybody makes mistakes. But is that person coming at those mistakes with purposefully, or is it a mistake? In other words, is in general that person looking to fulfill their role in the universe? Yes. So that person is still considered a God-fearing Jew, even if they make mistakes. And then in the specific as well, the rest of the chapter, which I didn't print out, talks about how we can use this meditation and remind ourselves of it and review it before a mitzvah, and especially before studying Torah, so that the more the better. The more we click into this intent, and then maybe even create an appreciation, and then maybe even create a feeling before our mitzvahs, we are fueling our mitzvahs with the left-sided wing of respect and fear and awe and all that sided emotion.
It's very powerful.
Extremely.
It's like simple, powerful.
Yes. And the beauty of it is that it's a spectrum. It can be simple, and it can be extremely complex and immense. That's the left-sided wing. The Alter Rebbe continues with saying that there's the right-sided wing. Don't forget, once you've established, and remember, he likes the order. He wants us to do the fear first, because of the respect, because the importance of respect. Once you've got that respectful foundation of understanding your place in the universe, then you can also cultivate the love that the other meditations that we've actually learned before this, ironically, which leads us to more of expansive feelings of I want to serve God. I want to put this in action in the universe. And both of them balance each other out, right? We've got two wings, and they fly the mitzvahs, the actions up in a very visualistic way, but, and of course, and then the Alter Rebbe continues to explain later in the chapter that actually we can foreshadow it with the last page. Okay, actually I like this top paragraph. As explained in the Zohar, which is the major Kabbalistic work, just like the ox, on which one first places a yoke in order to make it useful to the world, so too must a human being first of all submit to the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, and only then engage in divine service. So in other words, it comes first. But it's not the only side. There's the other side too. And in Raya Mehemna, it's the source, it is written that every man must in his divine service belong to two categories and levels, namely the category of servant, who serves his master out of fear, or respect, more like, because we're talking about, I'll tell you in a minute, and the category of son, who serves his father out of love. So we've got two aspects, and this is very relevant when it comes to the high holidays prayers. We've got the famous Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. And it comes up even more, and if you pay attention to the Rosh Hashanah service, it's a huge theme. Father, King. We've got both. And we are both. We are both children of Hashem, given a soul, blown from the Father, from our God. And we're also servants entrusted with a task, and with this relationship of respect. Now, the paragraph continues to explain that you can have a prince. You can have a relationship of a prince where he's a father, he's a son, and a servant. He's a subject because he's part of the king. He's part of the empire. He's a subject of the king. He's not the king, so he's a subject of the king. Yet he's the king's son. That to be able to fuse that level of awe, which morphs into that selfless love, is possible, but it's a very sublime experience and level. And so it's yira ilah, it's definitely the higher level of fear, which is that awe, and then right above that, the ahava rabba, the major love, this subsuming love that we will learn about in the future chapters and so on. So it does exist. Being a father and a son at the same time exists. But on a human level, it's important to put one step in front of the other. First, we are a servant, then we're a son. And then when we do them both at the same time, understanding that the respect serves as the foundation of our relationship. Where was I going with that?
It says Avinu Malkeinu.
Mm-hmm.
Surely then it's father first relationship and king second.
So I'm sure there's more reasons than what I'm about to tell you now,
Yes.
but when we're talking to Hashem in the high holiday services, we've got an agenda. And the agenda is to arouse God's mercy. Because this is our day of judgment, this is our first day of the new year. And when we tell God, we're your son first, we both are true. For us, in our service, we accept servant first. But when it comes to God, we remind him, love us, be merciful with us, like you would a son before a servant.
It's very interesting to put it in the context of a particular holiday.
Yes, as it comes close. I think there was more I was going to say. Yes, there was something important we skipped. Okay. So, I've once mentioned that there's 12 psukim, 12 verses that we teach children, and they're like, some of them come from the written Torah, some of them come from the prophets, some of them come from the oral Torah, and some of them come from the actual Tanya. And they're just 12 verses from the whole Torah that the Rebbe compiled as a list of 12. So he curated these verses, and he was really big into teaching them and to children in a way of a fun chant, and they would do parades and rallies, and the kids come up and they lead a verse. So what does it mean to lead a verse? So the first one, we do it for birthdays. The little child will say Torah, and everybody says Torah, and it says Tziva, and everybody says Tziva. Alanu Moshe Merasha Kilat Yaakov. So that's one of the verses. Shema is one of the verses. So one of the verses from the Tanya comes from this chapter, and it's a basic it's a basic respect meditation. And funny, it's actually this one verse is a compilation of verses from all over the Torah, and the Rebbe quoted the Tanya and considered it one verse. So it's on the third page. Yeah, it's on the third page. And it's highlighted in yours only. So you can maybe show it so we can get a visualization. There it is. So it's Vehi. I'm going to say it in Hebrew first because it's one of those verses. Vehine Hashem nitzav alav. And you can see that they've put quotations in the different parts of the verse. Umelo chol haaretz kevodo umabit alav uvochen klayot valev im ovdo karaoi. And behold, God himself stands over him. So this is from the written Torah in Deuteronomy. God is standing, we're first recognizing God is standing right over me right now. The whole world is full only with his glory. And he sees everything. So umabit alav, and he's looking at me, he's seeing me. He's not just looking at me, he's seeing me. Um, and he is searching his kidneys and his heart. In other words, his feelings and thoughts, if he is serving him as is fitting. So it's interesting, like, you know, it aligns with the Chinese medicine of how we have wisdom in our organs, right? When we experience emotions and thoughts, we experience them somatically. They're in our bodies, our kidneys, for example. I mean, it's all of our organs, but for example, our heart, for example, our kidneys. It doesn't even say our brain. So God sees us. He has X-ray vision, right? He sees our entirety. He sees what we meant to do. He sees what we want to do. He sees our dreams. He sees our failures, but where we really came from in those failures and everything about our entire psyche. He sees it. This is one of the 12 psukim because it's one of those basic respect meditations that we are trying, that are essential and foundational to the service of our service.
Is it judging? Is God judging us here?
It does seem like that would be the next step.
It does.
But it's definitely on the fear side, right? The emotions that come up when you read this is not love, it's more fear on that side of things. And that has a place. At the same time, there are other verses that are quoted that are love verses. So this is, you know, the token fear meditation, not fear as in fear, but as in respect and awe.
Are you doing as much as you can?
Are you doing as much as you can? And I am seen, right?
Everything.
I am seen. So I mean, it is what it is, right? Being seen is what it is, right? We are a package deal, but so we can see that as fearful, right? To be seen, and we can see that as comforting as well. Actually, there's comfort in being seen and understood entirely, not just, you know. And actually, later on in the chapter, it talks about how even if forgot which rabbi in the Mishnah said, even if we would be cognizant of Hashem in our lives the way another human could be watching, that would inspire awe. That would be enough. In other words, we are naturally inhibited when others are watching us, and we act certain ways. We want to be our best selves when we're being seen, right? Even by other humans. So even if we were to recognize that God is present and there, almost as if he's just another human, that would inspire awe, and that would even be enough. That would inspire respect, and it would keep us aligned to our best selves already as this level one. That would be a level one. But a level one. Because even just recognizing that we are seen is already part of this recognition. Does that make sense? And it can be a visualization even. You know, if we're having a hard time accessing that recognition, we can actually visualize this idea of being seen. You know, and in the high holiday services, we have lots of visualizations of God as a king, which is actually what I wanted to mention before. How part of the original meditation, how God is so great and God is so infinite, and yet he's a king and created me to, all of this for me to serve him, that it uses the word king. And the reason why it uses the word king is actually to show that he's not a dictator. When you have a relation, it's hard to understand this because it's not very modern. But a king, according to the way it's used in this context, the intention of using the word king, is that a good king, a benevolent king, a good king, a responsible king, is looking for approval and cooperation from his subjects. He's not looking to dictate and to be, a tyrant. He's looking, a king, and it talks, this is a huge concept in the Rosh Hashanah as well. Ein melech b'lo am. There is no king without a nation. If a king was delusional and decided that they were, they had subjects and the subjects did not recognize him, he would just be a madman. Right? There has to be an agreement, right? There's both. There's a given in a kingship and a dictatorship. It's about power, but in a kingship, and there needs to be an acceptance from the subject side to have this king. And that's really big in Rosh Hashanah, because when we blow the shofar, Kabbalistically in the cosmos, what we are doing is accepting the kingship of God. And we do that daily, but we also do it in a big way annually with the shofar blowing. So this idea of accepting the yoke, right, which back to the Kabbalat Ol, is this idea of being an active acceptant that we have a king. So there is
contractual.
Yes, but it's empowering because we are essential in the relationship. It matters that we accept it. If we didn't accept it, we wouldn't be an active participant in the relationship.
Which would not make him less, but would disconnect.
It would make him less, I think, if the subjects didn't agree to
not
him.
God. Not God. I don't.
No,
Well,
the
God would,
idea of the
his
king.
existence would be no less.
Yeah.
Yet, I think that there is an aspect of God agreeing to be part of this relationship, but agreeing that we matter to the point where we can actually affect the degree of his kingship over us humans based on how much we accept it. I know it's part of the contraction. It's part of what God did, put himself in this position so that we would have so much power. It's mind-boggling.
Definitely deserves some meditation.
No, yes, it's mind-spinning, actually, in my opinion. Like when I think about it that way, because God didn't need to need us. He chose to need us. He chose to have a relationship with us, and when we're in a real relationship, we're not redundant, right? Then it wouldn't be a real relationship. It's mind-boggling to hold those two contradictions at the same time. How God is really the only existence, true existence, yet he created a scenario where he needs us. They're contradictory. And that's part of the amazing infiniteness of God, that he can create such contradictions. I think that's enough for today.
So we're going to stop at that paragraph?
We'll stop there. I did pretty much allude to the rest of the chapter. Maybe next week I'll kind of give us a little highlight of what I would like us to know from, and then we'll move on to the next chapter.
Very hard one.